Well, June through November is considered hurricane season in Texas, and although there hasn't been a hurricane hit the Gulf Coast since Ike back in 2008, you should always be prepared. Joining us today is Michael Anderson of Anderson Insurance Partners. Thanks for being with us this morning. We've obviously seen what natural disasters can do to Central Texas between the wildfires and the flooding. What are some of the things you recommend for families as they prepare for severe weather?
Well, one of the key things here in Central Texas is if a hurricane were to come ashore on the Texas coast, really what we're going to see is the resulting and somewhat devastating inland flooding. Most people, it's a common assumption that their homeowners or business owners policy would cover a flood, and that's just not the case. There's no way to cover that except through a flood policy, and a lot of people think if their lender didn't require them to have flood insurance, they don't need it. And that's not really true either, because they only require that of the highest hazard areas. 25% of all flood damage occurs in the lower flood hazard zones, and it's a simple process just to contact your local trusted choice independent agent. For more information, there's another great website, floodsmart.gov, that has a lot of resources on it.
So you have to ask for flood insurance specifically, as opposed to just kind of an umbrella coverage.
That's exactly correct.
And do you recommend like utility checklist and evacuation plans?
Correct. Every family should have a disaster plan, and that website, the website ready.gov, actually has a great template to help you get that conversation started. And businesses should have disaster plans also.
How about replacing your belongings if you do happen to lose something?
In replacing your belongings, the key part of that really helps the process is if prior to a loss, you've made either a videotape or photographs of your belongings. After a disaster, with all the things that happen, it's really kind of hard to pinpoint and list all what's missing.
And that's a big factor is you have to get everything appraised at the correct value, right?
That's correct. Well, as far as replacement costs, a lot of people assume that what they could buy or sell their home for is what they should insure it for, and really you want to figure out what it would take to rebuild your home. A compounding factor of that is after a major disaster, construction costs significantly rise, so if you're starting out underinsured, you could really be underwater on that.
No pun intended.
That's
there.
Exactly right.
And would the same apply to a business as well?
That's the exact same premise, because it's going to cost a business more to rebuild as well. Another thing about flood policies in particular is if your lender does require it, they're really only going to require it for the structure. That doesn't even take into account all your personal belongings or the business personal property.
Right. Great information there. Michael Anderson, Anderson Insurance Partners, get you to stick around for our next hour.
Right.
And more tips on protecting yourself against the flooding that could occur during hurricane season.